What's up? What's up? All right. So I'm Kyle Fugit, and I am stoked that you guys are here today for this. I love the hotel game. I love the hotel industry, and I'm really pumped for us to really get this going. I actually had a call yesterday, and the question was like, why hotels? Like, why do people end up talking and getting into hotels? And it's just a natural progression, right? Like you start somewhere, you start building, you pick up a couple more, STRs, and then you kind of just want to you just start building bigger and bigger. And not everybody goes into hotels, but it is a natural progression. So I want to talk about high level about hotels in general, why, pros and cons, a little bit about softwares, what it looks like on the team side, just a holistic view of you know, we did a training a while back, and it was a series of like finding and buying hotels. And so now I want to kind of focus on kind of before that, but know what you're getting into before you get into it. So that's what today is about. That's what I'm here to go with you along this journey. So at any point you have questions, of course, throw it in the chat. I try to go back and forth and monitor what I can. But nonetheless, like just to show you here so you can see obviously this picture of what looks like an inn, and so you can't really see the full thing. We just signed a partnership on this one. It closed about a month and a half ago, I think it is, but we launched it in like 5 weeks. So this is 19 units. This is a 9 unit inn, and then we have 10 cabins. So the inn, and then you can't see the cabins, but this is just a good picture of the inn. And behind it is like a garage, and there's a unit on top. And the garage is more or less storage, and then the cabins are spread out like to the left that you obviously can't see here. So, but anyway, so we're going to talk about this. I mean, we're literally about to launch this one in like 5 weeks, and this is all the way up in Maine. We're down here in Georgia, so let's talk about the team a little bit. Let's talk about like kind of what it looks like, what the process from takeover to launch. Just kind of let's start the discussion. So if you're thinking like, hey, I might want to get on hotels maybe this year or next year, then like I'm glad you're here or I'm glad you're watching this or later or whatever, because this is where you need to be, and this is the probably the perfect presentation for you today, right? So I'm just going to do one thing. I'm going to open up YouTube on the backside just to make sure I don't have any comments over there. Excuse me. So let's see here. That's really it. Okay. So I'm trying to keep that one open too, just in case we have something come through YouTube side. But here we go. All right. So you think you're here for hotels, or you think you're going to get into hotels, or maybe that's the progression for you. You just don't really know what to start. And it's like, look at it like kind of like plumbing. Like most people don't have any clue about plumbing. Like they get a leak in their house and they're like, call a plumber. Whereas like once you get into it, you're like, oh, it's really not that hard. Like it's just plumbing. Like, there are things like I wouldn't do, but for the more or less probably 80% of plumbing, residential, commercial, like we can do it. So once you get into the field, you're like, all right, I understand it. This makes more sense. This answers my questions, X, Y, and Z. So I say all that. Let's jump forward. But before we jump into that, there's actually a huge thing that we're doing in PowerPath. We're bringing to you in 2 weeks. We're starting. It's Acquisitions Cafe live. We're going to be going live every Monday for 90 minutes at 1 o'clock Eastern. We're going to go live. We're bringing deals to you, things that we've put under contract. I'm teaming up with some really good guys, and we're just going to start pumping a lot of deals through. So if you're looking to acquire a hotel or an STR, I've got a form. Actually, I have a post out there so you can like put your town and your market that you're looking in. But we're going to be doing the same thing for hotels too, and it's really stuff like creative finance, things that we lock up under contract and we're ready to dispo. First 48 hours is primarily just it's exclusive for the PowerPath community, in the private community for the first 48 hours. After that, we're going to push it to you guys on our lives. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, the whole 9 yards across the board. we're going to be bringing you this kind of stuff. So what is PowerPath? You say most of you know what it is, but this is the free group that you're watching this in, unless you're on YouTube. But we have PowerPath community, and we're on pace. It's an extremely fast growing real estate community for short-term rentals and boutique hotels. The goal is to be the number one. So if you think short-term rentals or hotels, this is the community that you're looking for. There is a lot of coaching. There's a lot of calls a week. There's a lot of everything. We do a lot of challenges. We have the co-hosting challenge coming up. So if you're looking to grow that side of the business, and then we have the acquisitions that are coming in as well. So if you're looking to purchase an STR, or if you're looking to grow your co-hosting or start co-hosting or get your systems right and be in a community with other people that are doing this every day, this is exactly where you need to be. So, all right, enough about that. Let's talk about hotels. So why in the world would somebody go buy a hotel? Good question. There's a big difference between single family homes and Airbnbs and hotels and commercial. So first of all, like if the value is way better when it comes to underwriting hotels and selling a hotel and refinancing a hotel, because it's based off the income. So there is a thing where they, like, you know, last year, a lot of the STRs are being recognized as a commercial asset. But at the end of the day, if you're going to sell it and it's not a crazy lucrative deal, it's really hard to push it for whatever it generates. Let's say it's a super high performing asset. It's hard to sell it based off that income. Whereas, you know, you still have your other comps, like your other single family home comps. And there's only a couple of lenders that really, you know, you have the DSCR loans, but let's say, like, you know, that's still an opportunity to purchase it as a forever home. So if you're trying to sell it, you're only selling to investors. It's a little bit more difficult versus the super experienced investor might be going for hotels. Now, commercial assets, underwriting, income, expenses, there's a cap rate that's involved, which is for like kind of more like the market. And as lean as you can get, you know, the more lean you can get, the more value it's worth, right? So if you can get your expenses down to, like, say 50%, instead of closer to 60, then you're same asset, same team, same booking, same occupancy. That will, you know, the value of that hotel will go up. And depending on how much you're grossing and how much you're lean, that could go up a couple $100,000 to $1 million, like depending on how big the asset is, right? Like if it's a $30 million asset and you cut 10% expenses, you know, you're talking about maybe another $3-4 million. So that cap rate and value is really, really awesome when it comes to, especially if you really know what you're doing. Then you can up the income, you can lower the expenses. You know, it's a business, right? Like it is a piece of property and it is valued very well, but at the end of the day, it is a business, right? So if it's, and this is how short-term rentals should be, you know, managed and looked at too, but a lot of people don't. It's a business. The business doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. Okay. When it comes to building a team, so you can build a team a lot faster and you can support the cost of that team whenever it is, you know, that you're buying a hotel. And if you already have STRs and then you buy a hotel, you can cross merge those teams, like your VA team. And then of course you're going to have like a cleaning team, a maintenance guy. Like you would build that team really, really fast. And the hotel should be able to pay for, say, majority of that team. And then of course the financing. So, and I misspelled commercial, but commercial financing is a lot easier to obtain than like a DTI income, trying to buy a vacation rental, trying to buy, you know, your forever home, whatever. Commercial financing, like let's say you go through and you're like, okay, well, you know, they look at your cash flow, they look at your net worth and your liquidity. Well, if you don't meet one of those when it comes to commercial financing, you can sign what's called another KP, or key principal. So let's say you're $20,000 a year short on cash flow. Well, if you have a friend that has maybe an investor on the deal or whatever, but you have somebody that you can bring in that does have that cash flow to kind of fill that void, then you can sign them to the KP, give them a little bit more equity, and you can move forward with the financing. So, and they don't care where the money comes from. So, like if you're loaning the down payment or you have a partner that's bringing the down payment, they don't care where it comes from. They're not going to start underwriting everybody that's put money in. They just underwrite the one key principal or two key principals, three key principals. Okay. So it's a lot easier to get commercial financing. And if your asset that you're buying, your hotel, has really good cash flow, then that cash flow is already satisfied. That cash flow requirement is already satisfied. If you're bringing $100,000 with a refi, for instance, and it's already got $100,000 in the account, then that's going to help your liquidity. Like it's just really easy. It's just really, really cool whenever you go through a commercial financing deal. And of course, if you do seller financing is a whole lot more common. Your creative deals are a whole lot more common when it comes to hotels. All right. So we'll move on to some myths. So a lot of common myths that a lot of people have is like and it depends on the asset. It depends on how you're buying it. It depends on if it's running, if you're going to shut it down, if you're going to rehab it or not. Like a lot of the myths are it's easy and it's lucrative from day one. And that's just not the case. So if you buy something that is already running and you buy it for a really good deal and you're not going to really shut it down, you're not going to rebrand it, you're just going to keep it going. That's what we're doing with the Bluff House in Maine. Okay, the one that I showed you on the first page. We aren't changing a lot for year one. We're going to do a little bit of minimal stuff, right? We're going to change some of the furniture out. We're going to change some linens out. But we're letting it book. It's not like we just shut it down. And it's seasonal too. So it's shut down like 5 or 6 months out of the year. But we're letting it book. And so we're taking the income from last year and we're hoping to do another 10 to 20% increase along with some of the other things that we're adding in. So just naturally, it should keep going. We're going to better optimize the website and the appearance and the presence, the pictures, all of that stuff, just to make it easier to book. It's really hard to book it. So that alone is a really, really good value add that we're going to bring in that doesn't cost any money. But the whole idea of like it makes money from day one. When we shut down the Mallard, that was our first hotel. We renovated. It took 9 months. And then we launched in slow season. So then it's like, okay, well, now it's not paying the bills. And so as it goes through, and then it goes through this year one in a new branded or a new construction hotel, year one always sucks. Like always sucks unless you already have all of these old reservations coming in and they're on the books. So, we've got somebody in PowerPath they got a 10 unit. They're doing a light rehab on it. They launch in like 4 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks. And they just kept taking reservations in based off of the old pictures. But they're not like gutting the whole thing or anything like that. They're doing paint, flooring, some furniture, and they're moving on. And that really is one of the best ways to do it, especially if you have a good presence online. Now, if it's like a Roach Motel, it's a totally different story. That's pretty much what the Mallard was when we bought it. It was not the same rooms. It just needed it. Okay. But your year one is not always like your year one usually sucks, just to be honest, unless it's something that you can keep booking through. So if you can keep taking the reservations, you can leave it open, like look at what time you're going to shut down. If you're going to shut down through off season, okay, that's a different story. But then you need to be able to book through that, busy season and be able to bring it back up and bring it on live. So that's just the reality of it. Now, like you get through year one, you get through year two, and then from there, it's like wide open. You keep your expenses low and you can net 10, 15, 20, $30,000 a month, depending on what the size of the asset is. So just remember that. Now, if you hire out everything, you're obviously going to be lower on the income side. If you hire out all the management, all you want to do is purchase it, then like your income is going to be lower. I mean, obviously. But they also could bring in more experience. So it depends on like if you got, you don't know anything about hotel management. You're like, I don't know if I want to do it. If you got in a community or coaching or whatever that actually pushed you and like with other people that do this, push you in the right way and kind of told you and showed you where to go, that's what I would obviously advise. But if you want to hire everything out, okay, that's totally cool. You're just going to make less money. So then another myth is you set it and forget it. It's a hotel. It has a team. It runs by itself. Well, that's just not true. There's still things that you need to check on. There's still things that you can improve. There's still things that as you grow and as you get more bookings and as you do systems differently, you're going to have to hire and fire team members. There's going to be cleaners that come through that just aren't working. There's maintenance guys that come through that just aren't working. There might be revenue managers that come through that just aren't working. There's things that you're going to have to maintain that business. Now, when it comes to the revenue side, this whole set it and forget it idea is just not true. Now, like, it is more passive, but it's not a set it and forget it. You need to be analyzing your revenue every week, if not every day, or somebody does. Read your reviews. Is there something that you can change? Take your feedback seriously. Are you offering a really good guest experience? Like, pretend like you're the guest and go through the full process and just be honest with yourself. Is this a good place to rent or not? Does your booking process suck or not? So, and there's always these ways that you can improve it. Okay. Like, as you grow, you can improve it. There might be things in the rooms that you installed originally that broke and was a bad idea. So I'll give you an example. We put these door locks, when you close the door and then you kind of swing the privacy thing out, that privacy latch where it's folded in and it pulls out and you can't open the door. That latch, we bought like 40 of them on Amazon. And within like 3 months, they started breaking. The springs were coming out. I just bought cheap locks. I didn't know there was a difference. And the springs and the set screws and stuff started coming out, and they were losing the spring and they were staying open. So if you slam the door, it would actually push them open. The wind would push them open. And so then you try to enter from the outside and it would just jam and you couldn't. It was locked from the inside. There was nobody there. So we went to a hotel and did a lot of digging on like the equipment they had. And I found these same locks, but it was made by a different brand. And it was in their entire inn. It was an entire hotel. And they were durable. And I found it, took a picture of it, went home, ordered them all. And we replaced them. Haven't had a problem since. So there's these things that you can constantly just keep working on. Another one is it's the same as the STR industry. And it's just not. Like, your guests are different. The revenue is different. The income's different. The ways you charge are different. You're not charging clean fees versus, a regular hotel. Like, there's just differences. Now, there's a lot of similarities, but they're not all, it's not all different, but they're not all the same. All right. So let's talk about softwares for a second. You have STRs and you have hotels. So if we look at like what softwares to run on each one of these, what PMSs to use and that kind of thing, they are different. Now, I used to be with Guesty for the STRs. And Guesty said, I can also do hotels. Well, then you look at the expense side and you're like, this doesn't even make sense. It's $55 a listing. I've got a 30-unit hotel. Like, that does not make any sense compared to Cloudbeds. Cloudbeds is a hotel software. So, looking at the differences there on your PMS side, I always push Cloudbeds for hotels. There are some people in the group that have like Hostfully or HostAway or something like that. And it's kind of hit or miss. Like, they kind of like it, but there's things that it doesn't do, whereas Cloudbeds is for hotels. So it's not like you're going to put a bunch of different STRs on there. Like, they'll tell you, like, we can kind of accommodate it, but you don't want to have, like, you can't have different clean fees attached to each one. You can't have, separate locations and having two different websites and different things. Like, that doesn't work. So you get a hotel, you get Cloudbeds. That one account can be sold with the hotel. Like, that's, that is designated for the hotel. We use OwnerRez for STRs. And so we still have an OwnerRez account and we have a Cloudbeds account. And then we have another Cloudbeds account. And then we have another Cloudbeds account because we got 3 hotels. Well, we're bringing on the third one for management and some equity. So those are 3 different Cloudbeds accounts. Now, you can create this thing with Cloudbeds where they can assign all of them to you. And you just filter and sort between the 3. So you have a CRM that goes to all 3 of them. With guests and things like that, which is awesome. You can kind of cross market there, but you can create where it's one login for everything. Pricing, we use PriceLabs and STR. For the short-term rentals, we use PriceLabs, and I actually tried to use PriceLabs for the hotel. Now, this is asset dependent. Depending on what you have, you may stay with PriceLabs, right? If you buy a resort with 15 different STR cabins, 15 different cabins, no inn or anything like that, they're all unique. You may decide to go through something like PriceLabs. On something like that, I would not use Pi, which you see here, PIE, Pi. That's inside Cloudbeds. For the Mallard, we're using Pi for that. For the Bluff House, we're actually not using anything. We're just doing it manually right now because we're trying to derive the prices from last year and just figure out what works and what doesn't. Next year, we may go with something like PriceLabs, but we're really trying to run lean and we can create different things inside Cloudbeds to say, okay, like we're going to increase the price or whatever because the occupancy for that day. Pricelabs can't do that. They have month-long occupancy changes instead of daily occupancy changes. We still use Ring cameras on both. So we use Ring cameras for both the hotel, for the Aurora has Ring cameras, and actually I think the Aurora has Blink cameras. I can't remember, and then we got Ring cameras going to the Bluff House too. So in our STRs we use Ring cameras as well. So you can use Ring or Blink or Google or Nest or whatever it is. That doesn't really matter. We don't have like a CCTV hookup in a room or anything like that. Like the team can just monitor everything from the cloud. Then you got your manual log changes. So STRs, we were using Lynx for a while, but Lynx is pretty expensive. $15 a lock. It just didn't make sense. So OwnerRes has a lock system. It's like $4 a lock. We changed that with the guest codes. You know, you have a ton of reservations at a ton of different places. You know, it would be difficult to go in through and try to get them all right. So we use the OwnerRes locks systems for that. But for the hotel, we just have a manual lock change. Schlage on codes are the locks we use. We use those on the hotel too. And they have an app where the team will actually go in and say, okay, here's the reservations that's come in. Here's the reservations that are here, you know, today or tomorrow. And they will actually go into the lock and they have a date and a time they can turn on and turn off that code. And they just align it with whatever phone number comes through in the system. And that goes out to the guest as an automated message. And it's not perfect, but when I ask the team, like, do we absolutely need to pay $300 a month for a remote lock system? I say no. Like, our system works really well. It's not perfect, but it works really, really well. We're paying a team. We have employees. It's something that they can do, and we can roll that expense into their responsibilities, right? Like, we don't need to be hiring out. Remember, it's a business. We don't need to be hiring out everything all the time, because then what do we have a team for, right? They're employees. They have jobs. There's things that have to be done, and this is one of them. So they're totally cool with this. They said this, you know, the Schlage app has really evolved over the last couple of years. So now it's super easy to use. It's just, I don't know, it's just simple. It's just easy and it saves money. And then management for the cleaners and the maintenance guy. For the STRs, we use Turno and Breezeway. You can use Breezeway or Turno. We use Turno. We don't use Breezeway for the STRs. We get Turno for free through OwnerRes. So we're not going to pay for Breezeway. That doesn't make any sense. For the hotels, we use Breezeway and WhatsApp. And we have the maintenance guy on Breezeway and the cleaners on Breezeway. They submit the photos, but they also communicate through WhatsApp. So like if a room gets cleaned and they mark it done, they submit the photos, then the team will actually let everybody know, say, hey, you know, room 102 has been completed. It's finished. It's completed. It's good to go. And then they can go back through and ask questions. And that's kind of how the cleaning team and the VA team and us, we kind of communicate through WhatsApp for the hotels. All right. So that's a lot of information, but the biggest part here on software is the PMS and the pricing software are different. The PMS is the biggest one. That is different. Okay. Then you have OTAs. So you want to list across the board for STRs. It's usually just Airbnb, Vrbo, right, and direct booking. But there are some of the smaller products that get put on Booking.com. So if you have suites or you have a really, really small inn, maybe a duplex or triplex, something like that, you would do Booking.com. We have some 2-bedroom cabins, 1-bedroom cabins on Booking.com. That is great to do for STRs. For the hotel, there's this thing I found out, it's called OTA saturation. You have too many OTAs and it becomes saturated. Nobody can make a decision. It's just way too much when somebody goes on google.com and says hotel in Copper Hill, Tennessee, and then you have like the Mallard Hotel come up and you have like 27 different places to rent. Like, that's crazy. So just have a simple, I was told no more than 6 OTAs. So, excuse me, and it depends on your asset, right? If you have cabins or an inn or whatever, or if it's a roadside hotel, you have your direct website for direct booking. You absolutely have to have that. 50 or 60% of all your bookings are going to come through direct. There's no question. That's just how it works. Airbnb, depending on your asset, like I get one Airbnb booking every 2 months. Like it's really not even worth it. So Airbnb, Booking.com is massive. Expedia is massive. Expedia and Booking.com are your top two booking OTAs for hotels, period. End of story in the world. So if you're not on Booking.com or Expedia, get on both. Then Agoda. So Priceline and Agoda is the same company. So Priceline is huge. Agoda, a lot of people have never heard of, but you hear Priceline, you know what it is. So those are the top three for hotels. Then you have Hopper. I know people who have had massive success with Hopper. I haven't had any success with Hopper. I haven't had one booking with Hopper. So, but I put that on here because in some areas like Hopper's big. But understand that like we don't use Vrbo through this. Now, if you have cabins, they're lakeside, it's a big resort. Vrbo might be a really good avenue to book through, but we don't. We don't use it at all. So just understand, like Booking.com, the biggest takeaway from here is Booking.com and Expedia and Agoda. You have to be on those three if you want to increase your occupancy. There's no question. You need to be on those. So understanding those, and like Cloudbeds doesn't like build like OwnerRez, for instance, you build the listing inside of OwnerRez and then you can push it out to Airbnb and then it will produce a listing out there. That's not how it works with Cloudbeds. And you can do the same thing for Booking.com. That's not how it works with Cloudbeds. Cloudbeds is more of like, it is a property management software, but it's more of like a channel manager. And so you build a listing in Booking.com, you build a listing in Expedia, and then you map them together. Okay. And if you have like 10 of the same room, all it is just one booking through Expedia and it populates into a list of 10, if you will. And once those days fill up, then those days are no longer available on Expedia or Airbnb or whatever. So strangely enough, I get that question all the time. Like, how do you know? You have to build 10 different listings on Airbnb. No, you just map them together. You have one listing on Airbnb, you have 10 rooms available, and it just lands until it's like 0 and 1. 1 is open, 0 is closed, and that's it. Okay, so what are the benefits? Like, you want to get into hotels, but like, why? Right? What is another why question? You have the inventory to sell multiple rooms. So if you have a 10-unit inn and they're all the same, think about if you only had one, right? If it's one small house, you get one chance to book it, and that's it. Once it's done, it's done. And if you book it at a low rate, it's done. If you booked it, you didn't book because it was a high rate, it's done. That weekend's passed. On a 10-unit inn, you can say, okay, under 30 or 40%, we're going to be like $90 a night. We want to start getting some revenue in. And then at 30%, we're going to go up to 115 a night or whatever. And then you start booking to like 60%. Once you hit 60%, you're happy. You're like, hey, look, I'm good. Like, we're making money. 40%, we're 40%, we're paying the bills. 60%, we're happy. Now the rates can go even higher. So now you're not 115, 120, you're like 160, 170, 180. Then you keep booking up and you get a lot of last minute bookings. So you could see that all 10 units booked for a weekend and you could just keep selling rooms. Okay. Market driven, pricing driven. So you can see this for STRs a little bit too. But again, you get one shot. You get one night to book it. That's it. On a hotel, you get 10 times. Like, you get 10 nights. And so if you're booked too high, if you're priced too high and you're not getting any bookings, then lower your price. And what you can find is like you might have a one-off booking, and that's not going to help you for next year. But let's say you have a one-off booking, somebody comes in like super last minute, hours, I don't know, check-in, it's 10 o'clock at night, I don't know, day of check-in. They're going to book it. And so that doesn't really mean anything. You're still priced too high because you didn't book any days over the weekend. Now, if you get, kind of approaching that weekend and you start dropping your price, you understand, okay, 90 is kind of the sweet spot. So let's start booking these up. Then we're going to 115. We're going to book them up. 125, we're going to book them up. And when you're paying a W-2 cleaner, so like all of our cleaners are on W-2 payroll or 1099 or whatever, when you pay them based off the hours versus the turn, my cleaner is going to be there regardless. So I'm trying to put heads in beds when it comes to hotels. So I don't pay 30 or 40 or $50 a turn. I pay $20 an hour or whatever it is. So when that comes up, it's like, all right, you're going to be here regardless. I need to get as many heads in this bed as possible because we're selling that one night is worth $4,000 or whatever. Let's just say if you booked every single room, well, if it's $90 a night and you got 10 rooms, it's worth $900, right? For the price of 90. And then, if you go up to $100 a night at 10 rooms, you got $1,000 a night. So like you can kind of see how that $10 goes up 100. That $10 goes up 100 for your gross for the whole day. So you can understand like, okay, I just need to start booking as many rooms as possible. So it is very pricing driven. Like the market for that hotel is very, very, very based on pricing. And when you realize like my occupancy, let's say my occupancy is really low because my pricing is too high, there's a sweet spot there that you can say, okay, instead of 115, I'm going to go to 99. And on 99, it goes down and your occupancy goes through the roof. So then you have this like weird, like inverse effect. But there's a sweet spot there that you can lower it a couple of bucks. You're outbeating your comps, and your occupancy may go up 20 or 30%. That's impressive when you do that, and it's really cool to see. So when you look at the full numbers at the end of the month, and you're like, "Holy crap!" This time last year we were at 18% occupancy. This year we're at 30, and our revenue went way through the roof, but our ADR went down like $15 a night. It's really, really cool to see that. Because that's when you realize like you started figuring it out. Okay. Benefits around your team. So we kind of touched on this before. You've got a cleaning team, you've got a VA team, you've got maintenance team, you've got a team around your washing stuff, like your chemicals and stuff like that. So you start building these teams, and what happens, like if you're running STRs in the same market as your hotel, what tends to happen is you can cross those teams, I don't know, not cross train, but you could spread that expense across the board. So let's say you're spending, $5,000 a month in labor, and then, you have 10 doors. I don't know. Let's just say, well, like you just divide those 10 doors out and say, well, 5 doors go to the hotel, 5 doors go over here. And then you split that labor cost in half. You say, well, 2,500 need to go over here, 2,500 needs to be billed back here. So you can play with that, especially if it's in the same market, because you can use all of your team across the same market. Okay. So the team was like it builds quickly. It builds really, really quickly. And it's a good way to lower your expenses if you have an STR company as well. So that kind of goes with like expense dilution. I'm just gonna leave that there. Then you have the net worth that comes in. So when you purchase a hotel and then you raise the income and you raise the NOI, your net worth goes up, right? So like if you bought it for $1 million and you put $200,000 on, let's say you put 200 grand down on it, that 200 grand moves from your cash liquid reserves to the property value, right? You're not increasing your income or you're increasing your net worth at that point. You're increasing your net worth when the property value starts going up. So now the property value goes to 2 million. Let's just say you did some improvements and you go to 2 million, or it goes to $1.5 million because you were able to optimize the revenue. You just increased $500,000 on your net worth, or $1 million on your net worth. And it's just in one transaction. So it's one transaction, one business, one growth, one experience, one goal, and your net worth goes through the roof. Okay. So when you buy a property, buy a house and you do a rehab and then you refinance out and all that stuff, your net worth will go up like 30 grand, maybe 40 grand. On a hotel, it can go up like a couple $100 grand to $1 million or whatever. So it depends on how big your project is. I know somebody that did like a whole resort down in the Caribbean. I think they bought it for like $5 million, raised a bunch of money on it, and now he's got it for sale for like 10 or 12 million. And when he sells that, he alone will be able to put like $1.5 million in his pocket or something like that, if he hasn't already sold it. So when you look at that kind of situation, you're like, holy crap, in one transaction, one deal, one experience, you become a millionaire if that's the goal. If that's, you're playing at that high of a level. Usually if you're buying a $5 million asset, you're already there, but you're just increasing anymore. It's a business. So you have your K1s, you have your write-offs, you have your expenses, you have all of these things that come into it. Then you have your depreciation. Businesses have depreciation. And that will help your taxes at the end of the day. If you have your depreciation rolls into a K1, your K1 rolls into your personal taxes, and it starts fighting against, like the money that you owe for tax. So it's a great write-off, great way to get depreciation buying a hotel. But it's a business, so you still have to run it as a business. So if you're really good in business, then you will have no problem really experiencing the lucrative side of the hotel. If you suck in business, you suck at numbers, you suck at money, you suck at all these things, then I'm a partner with somebody who's really good. Because it is a business, right? It's not just a piece of property. It can be a beautiful piece of property, but if it doesn't make any money, it doesn't make any sense. And then you have the experience that comes with it. So when you go through the experience of buying a hotel, rehabbing a hotel, you're meeting new vendors, you're price messaging a ton of stuff, you're getting crazy discounts. You go through this crazy learning experience, and it's stressful. Like, I'm not going to lie. It is stressful. It is a lot. But at the same time, it's really fun. And then when you come out on the other side of it, it's impressive. It is really, really cool to come out on the other side and say, okay, now let's run the business, or let's exit, let's sell, let's refi, let's do all these things. And it's just a really, really, really awesome experience to go through and a ton of fun. Okay. Now, you want to buy a hotel, or you're thinking about buying a hotel and you don't know where to start. So let's talk about that. Some of these are based off experiences that I went through, or it's mainly experiences that I went through, or I watched somebody else and I'm like, whoa, hey, let's talk about this. So first things first. First things first. When it's time. So we're remembering it's a business. So that means if you're going to start underwriting it, we're looking at the P&L. So your profit and loss statement from the old owners. Now, if you buy one that has never been run, or it's mom and pop and they don't have any numbers, then it's a lot harder. Then you kind of have to go based off the new revenue, how much money you're going to put in it, yada, yada, yada. And that's where really all our minds come together for something like that. But remember, it's a business. So I'll give the Bluff House as an example. The Bluff House, we're not changing a lot, right? And it did certain amount of revenue. I'm not going to give exact numbers, but let's just say it did $500,000 a year. So I'm just going to give rough numbers. So let's say it did $500,000 a year. $500,000 a year. What was the expense side? So if they came in and they said, well, we spend $450,000 a year. Okay, so your NOI is $50K a year. Well, if that's the case, it's not worth much. But because you got to take that $50K and you divide it by a cap rate. And so you look back at the $450 and you say, well, what was your real expenses? Are you paying yourself $200,000 a year? Are you rolling in a lot of personal expenses in this? Do you have a lot of depreciation that's rolling into this? Are you using that as your P&L? What are you doing? Are you including debt service, which you shouldn't be in a P&L? But let's just say you are. You have to be able to identify that. At the same time, they have a $500,000 income. They only have $100,000 in expenses. We're missing a lot of stuff. Do they have property taxes in? They have lodging taxes included. I've seen P&Ls where they didn't even include a cleaning cost. And what we found out is the owners were doing all the cleans. So okay, so they didn't pay themselves for cleans. They just did an owner disbursement, and it was it's crazy. Okay. I've seen a lot of different things. I've seen a lot of different ways that people do this together, or put this together, and it's never perfect. So remember that. I don't care how the owner says or what you think about the owner. They're great people, whatever. It is never perfect. There's always either something added that doesn't need to be added, or something missed that was completely forgotten about. All right. And remember, if they're really getting ready to sell, then they're going to be trying to trim the fat in places that they're like, hey, look, it's going to suck for a year, but we're going to quit paying for this. We're going to start doing all the cleans, quote unquote. And that way we don't have a cleaning expense. So that way it looks like it's worth more than it actually is. So that is really, really important to understand the P&L side of the hotels and the P&L side of the business. And you have your old revenue versus your new revenue. I need you to analyze, how much is it making a day? Does it make sense to rehab it? Does it make sense to go in and change all the paint on the walls? Does it make sense to rebuild? because there's a lot of times where it doesn't. And it's like, well, they're doing so much occupancy at an ADR that needs to completely change and their presence sucks. So you're even surprised that they even ran it in the first place. And so we come in and we say, okay, well, like, does it make sense? Will you get your money out of it? Can we just increase the revenue? Can we increase the income? What can we do without shutting it down, throwing a lot of money into it? Is it something that we can still buy at a good deal, cash flow, pay the bills, and move on? And that's where you have to really understand what the old revenue is versus the new revenue. And at the same time, if like Bluff House, for instance, in 3 months of the year, it's like 100% occupied. Every room, every cabinet across the board. Looking at that, you're like, well, we can increase some revenue, right? If we're 100% occupied, that means our rates are too low. Now, understand that this place is like, it's in Acadia National Park. It is super highly sought after, very, very busy vacation rental market. But at the end of the day, if we're 100% occupied, we need to up the ADR, right? And understanding where the old revenue is versus the new revenue, how much can we increase it and how much do we think that'll add to the bottom line? We need to understand. On vice versa, if you have no old revenue or you can't get access to it whatsoever, we need to be able to evaluate it based off the new revenue. And then we have to work backwards to that sale price or the purchase price or whatever and just see, like, is it worth $500,000 in rehab costs? Is it worth just throwing some paint on the wall? What is it that's actually preventing people from coming here? Is it the interior or is it the exterior? Do we not have the amenities? Does that actually help? So again, it's really important to understand the old revenue, the current revenue, and the new revenue. And be honest with yourself, because don't make a stupid mistake. When it comes to softwares, sign up for them, get them onboarded, understand where they're at, like get the training and get them set up quickly. So Cloudbeds does your website for you. So I threw in a website here because people have to have a place to book. We did a landing page for a while and only a few bookings ever came in for just a landing page. When we built the website, it changed. It kind of took off. And with the website, you need to have, if you can have it, like, if you're going to shut it down, you're going to do a rehab, like if you can have it like 6 months before your launch date, do it. So if you're doing a full rehab and you got like a 9 to 12 month renovation, launch your website as soon as humanly possible. If you can start building the rooms out, getting some renderings, maybe get 2 rooms set up or whatever, 1 room set up, at least just take pictures of that room. They don't have to be perfect pictures. You don't have to pay $2,000 for somebody to come take pictures. Just set up a camera, take some really good quality photos, pay $100 and have somebody come do it, and post it on the website with some good rates and get your calendars booked. And then as the time comes and you approach that, then you can start raising the rates. Like there's a lot there, but the objective is to have months booked out before you approach that month. You don't want to roll into a month with like no bookings. It's scary. Don't do that. It's very risky. You want to book your calendars up before you get there. Okay, because you are going to have a lot of last minute bookings on traditional hotels, same day before. I mean, sometimes we have 6 to 8 reservations rolling on the same day, like of a check-in. So get your website out there, get the marketing out there. The marketing is key. So I put website again because that's where your SEO is going to start rolling in. Do your SEO before you buy any kind of click ads or Facebook ads or whatever. Build the SEO on the website. Do your pages on the website. Get it launched quickly so you can start taking in those bookings. And if you can put some banners out there around it, hey, we're going to be booking for January 2026 or whatever that looks like, let people experience it. Let people get in there. Let people start booking. Because you don't want to roll in like we experienced. Like we were open, and I would have people come through and say like, hey, when are you guys opening? Like, we're already open. We've been open for 2 weeks. And they're like, oh, we had no idea. So do the grand opening. That's a big marketing thing with the Chamber of Commerce. So do these things to get it. Like, people have to have the awareness that you're open. Now, they may not want the awareness. You may not want them to have the awareness that it's under new management. You know, if you buy it, don't do anything with it. And, excuse me. And, you know, it was a great, like the Bluff House, for instance. We're not trying to tell everybody that it's a new ownership. Everybody loved the old owners. So we don't want to be like, hey, by the way, you're not going to see the same people anymore. We would like for them to see it when they get there or just not know, period, right? If they loved it, great. long time no see. Are there software's alternatives to CoStar you recommend for comp data? No, CoStar is a great software to use for hotels. I pulled CoStar up last week. I was on a call. A lady was like, I don't know, I'm just looking at AirDNA. And that's technically like how we started. Like, we just got on AirDNA. There's really no comps around us. We just did all of the studios. It was like 70% occupancy. And we said, okay, let's go to 40. Like, if we underwrote it at 40, what does that look like? So CoStar is really, really good if you have stuff reporting in your area. Now, I would tell you to like high level look at your occupancy, your ADR, what the trend looks like. Is it going down from last year? Is it up from last year? And then once you get in our contract, as long as they have stuff reporting, I would do a star report. And that star report will tell you what all the hotels are doing, each one of them, like what those comps are, sales, all that kind of stuff. So I would just stick with CoStar. CoStar is great. And I hope that answered your question, Jared. Or maybe just reassures what you're using and what you're looking at. All right. So when you launch the hotel, like, marketing's key, right? Like, we have got to get it out there. We've got to get the new pictures up. We've got to have some place for people to book. It is super imperative. So if not, you're just going to open and be like, all right, we're open today with no bookings, right? Nobody knows. So why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. All right. So a couple of things you really need to focus on. So we're getting to the end of this. I know we only got a couple of minutes left. What do you need to focus on? Like, when you buy, what are the key things to really focus on? Revenue management. So understanding your revenue, this will make you or break you. If you launch and the ADR should be 125 and you're launching at 250 a night and you're not getting any bookings, it's because you're priced too high. You will price yourself out of the market, period, end of story. So revenue management is very, 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 very important. Tracking your revenue, where your KPIs are, understand what your goals are. That is probably, in my opinion, one of the most important things, right? Yeah, reviews are important, guest experience are important, but you can't have any of that if you don't have the right revenue. Okay? OTA management. So every once in a while, Expedia, Booking.com, Agoda, they'll try to run these like little comp rates, and things will end up being cheaper than what your direct booking site is. My revenue manager, I met with her this morning, and she's like, I went through this she used to work for a huge franchise. Excuse me. And she said, like, she used to deal with this. Like, one of her main jobs was constantly talking to Agoda, constantly talking to Expedia, constantly talking to Booking.com, saying, like, you guys need to up your prices because your rates, when you do your little internal discount, is lowering it lower than what we have. And it's stupid. And we're not running promotions over there. Why are they running promotions? So OTA management is really, really important. And also, like, just double checking. Do the titles match? Do the pictures still look decent? Like, just kind of like you would do with an Airbnb listing. You would kind of go through it, make sure you're not missing anything, making sure your amenities are still there. Your mapping is still right. So every once in a while, just double checking your OTA management. That is very important. Guest booking experience. So when you book through Airbnb, it naturally does all the guest booking stuff for you, right? Like, it naturally would be like, oh, your check-in's this day. Here's your reservation information, all that stuff. Well, in a hotel, if you book direct, you need to be able to supplement all that. So you got to think about the booking process. So, what does the email look like in the first place? You get the confirmation email, then you get a check-in email, then you get, some kind of like information email. Then from there, it's going to roll through on like the day of check-in. And then you're going to do, you don't want to hit people like you do in an STR and be like, morning after check-in, day before checkout. Like, you don't want to do that. People want to kind of be left alone. So we just do confirmation, some information about the area, saying, hey, you're going to get a book. You're going to get your information 3 days, the day of check-in. You're going to get your check-in information because we may like play Tetris and move them around. They get the check-in information that morning. Remember, it's a hotel. They already have the address. They know where they're going. But we can include that in the message. It's all text message and all emails. Then when they check in, it's, hey, like, well, it's that morning. Then they check in. Then they check out. And then we send them a survey. Hey, would you stay with us again? Would you recommend us? Yada, yada, yada. If they would, then we immediately send another email that says, I'm glad you liked us. Here's a 10% off code to go book again. So the guest booking experience is a little different, but also these emails that come out of these OTAs, I mean, the emails that come out of the PMS systems aren't pretty. They're just like very blocky. So we're actually working on something to kind of design the email where it's like a nice HTML, colors, centered, everything looks really good. The all the check-in information is like right there in the middle. It's really, really really nice. We were working with a guy a couple of months ago that just kind of ghosted us. So we're going to try to finish that up and actually be able to put that in our booking process. And then for the team, you need to have a playbook. So focus on building a playbook. So when the team answers the phone, they say, "This is Mallard Hotel. How may I help you?" Identify how you want them to answer the phone. What we found too is like it's a natural sales call for the team to help somebody book a room. So we went back and listened to some recordings, and it would be like, "Mallard Hotel, how may I help you?" And they would say, "Hey, this is Jeff, and I'm looking to book a room online, or to book a room for this weekend." Okay, great. So I can send you our email. I can send you our website, and you can just book through that. Do you need me to send you the website? And they're like, "Well, it's kind of hoping I can get some help." And then it's just back and forth this game, and like eventually, I had to tell the team, like, take the freaking credit card. This should be a sales call. "Hey, can I help you book it over the phone right now? I can make it super easy for you." "Okay, what is your card number?" "Okay, when are you staying?" "Okay, what kind of room do you want?" "We have this, we have this, we have that." Then you're telling them some stuff about the hotel, and it makes them want to continually book. We don't want them to jump off, because your older generation will jump off and they will go somewhere else. They don't want to book over the phone. They don't want to book online. They want to only book over the phone or when they get there. So we experienced that. And so we had to stop and tell the team, like, "Hey, we're losing money, right? Like, we're losing money if they don't book the room on the phone with you." So understanding that, like how that process looks, and then the SOPs for the hotel itself. So, your check-in information, how to contact, checkout information, do you have a drink machine? Do you have an ice machine? Do you have these things on site? And then in the event of this happening, call the police department. In the event of this happening, call the head cleaner. In the event of this happening, we'd call this person. And understanding what the room makeup looks like, what the hotel looks like, where things are. We have a game room on the 3rd floor. What that looks like, what room number it would be. All of these things need to be very, very, very clear in the hotel playbook. All of them. Just like you would do for the STRs. Even more for the hotel. And all your contacts. So, landscape, if you realize on the cameras that the grass is starting to get higher, the cleaner says something, the grass guy hasn't been there. Why not? Call them. If you're doing firewood offered in the area, if you're doing trash company, like what are you doing? You need to have contacts for all that. Power company, water company, internet company, all of that stuff needs to be in your playbook under contacts, so they know exactly who to call. Okay. And then we're building relationships. So the big thing, restaurants, breweries, shops, tour guides, fishing guides, all these things, taxi services. These are big relationships that you're going to build, and you'll put those under contacts too. But those people will refer you business, and you're going to refer them business. And if something happens, if somebody drives by your hotel and they say, "Hey, look, there's a party going out in the parking lot," they're going to call you. You can turn around and call the police department or tell the team to call the police department. That relationship building is awesome. When people hate you, it's kind of like having an STR in an HOA that gets a lot of bad rap. Like, it's very much the same if you don't have a good relationship with these people. So remember, they will help you thrive. They want to push you, especially in small towns. They want you to be successful. They want to see their town turn around. So build those relationships the best that you can. Like right before this training, literally 10 minutes before I got on this training, the brewery owner down the street called me and said, "Hey, by the way, some of our employees, they're having a big event this weekend, like they're getting married, and they're all staying at the hotel." I was like, "Cool, sweet, perfect, love it." She's like, "I told them that if you have a problem, you're going to call me and I'm going to deal with it." And I was like, "Perfect. Like, I appreciate that." And she said, "So they all wanted to stay in the same place. They all wanted to book with you. I told them all to book through you." I was like, that's what's up. That's where your relationships really, really come in. It's not just about having good relationships. Those relationships always make you money in the end. having good relationships, being good to people, taking care of people, they always make you money in the end. Okay. Now, if you need help to go through any of this process, I'm here for you. So if you have a hotel that you're trying to look at underwriting or you're trying to purchase, you don't know, maybe you got some questions, book a call. Let's go through it. Take a picture of this. I'm going to leave this up for just a minute. And let's chat, because I just got on a call on last Wednesday with a lady who she was flying to go see the hotel that she put under contract. And come to find out, the lending side, I was like, hey, I wouldn't do it. We were talking about 2-year balloons. I was like, I would push that if I could. I'd push it to 5 if you can, because doing a 2-year balloon on a property that's never been rented before, you have to refinance out, and you're either going to refi or you're going to sell it or whatever. But you're not going to sell it in 2 years, but you're going to refinance out. Well, that time comes. I'm 2 months deep into trying to refi mine. I got drug along by one lender. Then we finally got a good lender. Then it's a tax thing. Then it's, hey, we got to fix this. Hey, I need to see this. Hey, we got to go to committee. All of these things push that timeline back. And when you hit that 2 years, what is the repercussions? Are they just going to take it over? They're going to call the loan. What is he going to do? Is he going to foreclose on you? So you need to have that wiggle room and that breathing room to 5 years. My seller finance note on the Mallard is 5 years. I talked to the seller the other day. I was like, hey, by the way, this is kind of where we're at. We're trying to refi. So I just want to let you know. He was like, hey, yeah, I'm good. Right? We have a 5-year balloon. He can't do anything about it. So you need to understand, all the way from offer all the way through sale. If you've got something in there that you want help with, or you want to just be in a group with people that are doing this every day because you have a lot of questions, this is where you need to be. Book a call. I'll talk to you then. Text me, whatever. Don't care. Send me a DM. And with that, I'll leave you guys. So if you got any questions, shoot them to me, and I will see you guys later.